I'm just going to start this video off with a disclaimer. I don't know if this video will even go up. I've only just started and I'm filming this video for me. This isn't for anyone else. This is purely for me and I don't even know if it will go up. I will be making sure I at least edit the video because I feel like I need to. But whether it goes up or not is a different story and I have got a backup in case I need it. This isn't a type of video I would normally ever do. And it's not one that I would have, if I had a choice, I would have ever wanted to do. But I feel like I need to for me. I'm sorry I'm going to be a mess. I don't know how I'm going to do my makeup when I'm literally a mess. This video will heavily feature a lot of triggers. The triggers I will be mentioning, and if I mention any later, any more later, I'll put it up on the screen just for you as well. This video will mention triggers such as self-harm, suicide, and sexual assault, and not nice things. So if you are in a bad place right now, if you don't feel like you can handle hearing things like this, please don't continue watching after this point. I will understand if you don't want to watch, because I don't want to, I don't really want to be filming this. I was fine before I sat down. As soon as I turned the camera on, I just collapsed down to a fucking crying mess. This time of year is hard for me. And I think some people won't even understand why it's so hard. Some people might, but unless you've kind of been through the situation, I don't think you'll really understand the full emotion that I'm feeling. 3 years ago, on the 15th of July 2017, so although I'm not filming on the 15th of July, this video will be going up on the 15th of July. It's a Wednesday, it's just how my video schedule goes. But I don't want to pretend it was okay. Like, I was okay. I'm sick of hiding my mental health and I haven't really hid it for a long time now, maybe over a year. I've been open and honest about it, but I haven't been open and honest about the main cause of my mental health. 3 years ago, on the 15th of July 2017, I was raped. And throughout those 3 years, that is the first time I've said that. This time of year I always find it hard. I always tend to think back when I don't want to. I have been diagnosed with PTSD from the event, and no matter how much I feel like I'm moving forward and how much I want to leave the past in the past and get over this, the middle of June to kind of the end of July, I have the worst emotions come back. Let's get to the makeup. Sorry, I'm doing this video for makeup therapy. I love doing makeup. Makeup is what I enjoy doing, and I feel like if I have something to focus on, I'm not going to be in this state for the full video. So let's get on to the makeup, shall we? As usual, I have a mirror there and a mirror there, so I'm going to be looking around. I'm not going to bother saying what products I'm using, but if you are interested, I'm just going to put them in the description box below if I eventually do upload this video, but who knows. So, this time of year is typically very difficult for me. I experience a lot more flashbacks from my PTSD. My PTSD was initially from the I can't say it again, from the event, the traumatic event. But since this has happened, my PTSD has kind of developed with other events. So this time of year I tend to get flashbacks of what happened, and I start to think back. I get flashbacks of when I nearly went too far. And I mean, I'm sure anyone can imagine that flashbacks of a traumatic event won't be very nice, regardless of what the event is. If you found it traumatic, having a reminder of it with seemingly no notice is going to be very hard. And unfortunately that's something that I'm probably always going to battle with. PTSD is, I mean, it is like a terminal illness. Like, it's going to be there no matter how much therapy you go through, no matter what the event is. It's something that will always be there with you. And some days you'll be absolutely fine. Other days you won't. Well, you can see how red my nose goes when I cry. For the most part, I do okay. Now, anyway. I didn't always. But, sometimes, like this time of year, or if I'm just not having a great day, I won't do okay. Today I thought I was doing okay, so I thought this would be a good time to film the video, and now that I've said the R words and I've, for the first time ever, acknowledged the fact that it happened to me, yeah, it's just a lot. Of course I have spoken up about it in the past. I did report it to the police. I'll get more into that later, but I didn't ever use the words. All I used to say was sexual assault, or just the assault. I didn't always say, but I didn't ever say the other word. Other people did. And I feel like at first I didn't think I was worthy of having that word associated to it because other people have had it worse. And that was a really tough thing for me because I felt like, I don't know, I felt like I didn't deserve to be feeling the way I was. This video will be very like jumbled up. I haven't planned a single thing. I just want to get things off my chest. So if I'm halfway through one sentence and remember something else, then I'm gonna say it. I'm just gonna say what I feel as and when I feel it. No names will be mentioned apart from people that I know won't mind, such as my husband. But I'll just say my husband because no one really knows him as Steve apart from my friends. But yeah, no other names are going to be mentioned. I'm not saying the name of the person. A little bit of backstory though. I have always struggled with mental health and depression since I was about 10 years old. I was heavily bullied in school because I had nits or head lice or whatever people want to call them. And despite my mum's efforts of getting rid of them, I suffered with them kind of constantly for, I always say about 7 years, because it's from as early as I can remember. So yeah, I always say about 7 years I suffered with these on and off. And even when we moved house and moved schools and things like that, people still found out and people still bullied me for it. So I always struggled with mental health as it was. Eventually I did get rid of them through the help of the school. They made sure that I had kind of regular appointments with like the nurse, and she would help me out. So I very much appreciate the school's help with that because it was just a nightmare. But anyone that's been to school knows that some people will not care if the thing has been resolved. They will just carry on. So I spent pretty much my entire school career being called Nitty Nora, Knithead, things like that, which now don't affect me, but back in the day it really did. And until I was maybe 16, 17, someone calling me Nitty Nora or Knithead used to just make me instantly cry. That was the kind of the start of my mental health issues. So school wasn't a great time for me, and when I turned, not when I turned, but when I was 11, when I started high school, that was the first time that I physically harmed myself. So understand I am almost 23, it's my birthday next month, and I've been harming myself since I was 11 years old. More than half of my life, that has been the only coping mechanism that I've known. I'm not going to go into my bullying story or anything like that. Maybe one day, but I don't think I need to today. So that's just a backstory. I didn't just suddenly start self-harming. It's something that I've done for my entire teenage and adult life. I had been clean from self-harm from when I was about 16, maybe 17. I'm not entirely sure when I kind of stopped. I didn't keep track of it, but I eventually did get clean from it. And I was clean for about 3 years. Like I said, the assault happened 3 years ago, so it was just before I turned 19. I was still 18 at the time. No, just before I turned 20. I was 19 at the time, and I stopped around 16, 17. So 3 to 4 years I was clean from self-harm, and I didn't really have any, I don't know, any urges to go back. I didn't like the secrecy of it, and I did actually get help for that when I was in school as well. I went a bit crazy one time, went a bit manic, and it scared me, so I went to speak to my school counsellor, and if it wasn't for him I probably wouldn't be here today. I would never have made it through school, but again, that's something for another day if I feel like it. So yeah, when the assault happened, I'm not going to give too many details because I don't feel like they're necessary, but I feel like some are to kind of explain things a bit more. So when the assault happened, I was at home having a party with some close friends. I am the only English one out of the lot, so they always like to make a joke that English people are lightweights. And I kind of am. I didn't drink a lot. I used to drink a fair bit, but like not masses. I wouldn't drink every single weekend. Now I don't drink at all, really. But again, that's not really the point. So people used to just joke, oh, you're English, you're going to get so drunk so early, like you should really pace yourself and blah blah blah. And I was like, no, I want to be part of the group, like I want to be in the same league as you. So I carried on drinking as they normally were, and with me already being a lightweight, I did get very drunk very early. I decided to go have a nap because, like I said, I was in my flat, not this flat, but another one. I said I'm going to go have a nap just to sober up a little bit, wake me up in a couple of hours, and I'll come back to the party because I wanted to join the party. Like we're having fun. It was some close friends that we hadn't really seen in a while, and yeah, I just wanted to have fun with them. I didn't want to ruin the night by me being the typical English drunk girl out of all the, I don't know, all the Scottish people there that were a little bit better at drinking and holding their drink. I went to bed. Everyone was like, yeah, cool, we'll come and get you to bed. I went to bed. And it was in my bed that it happened. And that's as much as I'm going to go onto that. I was asleep, and that's, yeah. So immediately I told my husband. He was my fiance then, now my husband. But I'm just going to say my husband because it's so much easier. Immediately told my husband. He kicked the guy out. Didn't tell him why he was kicked out because the guy didn't know my husband knew. So my husband kicked him out and told my friend, one of my best friends, and she called the police for me. I couldn't speak. I was just in a puddle of tears. I couldn't bring myself to do it. So he didn't know what was going on. Not that I care. Whether he knew or not, but he didn't know what had been done or what had been said. So he stayed in his car expecting, because he'd been drinking, he couldn't drive, so he stayed in his car expecting just to stay there the night and then drive home in the morning. So in that time the police had come and had detained him. The details for me are they're not very straightforward, so it's hard for me to put the details straightforward across when I'm just talking. But from what I understand, he was detained and he kind of admitted to everything. That was good, that he wasn't as big of a piece of shit as I thought he would be about the situation, because let's be honest, most people wouldn't admit to it if they if they knew what they were doing was wrong, so I was surprised at that. I had the police question me, as they would. They came over, this was about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning that it happened, and then they came over about 3 in the morning. So they came over and questioned me, and I think when no one imagines it happening to them, but I think some people have had it cross their mind that it can happen to them. You never think it will happen to you, but in all honesty it can. I think 1 in 4 women experience some sort of assault in a sexual nature or harassment in a sexual nature. So, you know, I don't want to say, oh, it's going to happen to you, but you have a 1 in 4 chance, which is a very high number, like a high chance, and it shouldn't be like that. So, yeah. They questioned me about it and I didn't really know how to react. I mean, one of my mottos is you either laugh or you cry, so I was kind of joking like, oh, my eyeliner looks so good tonight, and I've cried it all off. You know, I didn't really know how else to react and what else to say. So I just kind of made jokes about it. I was obviously answered the questions properly. I told them what they wanted me to tell them, like, sort of thing. I was honest about everything and they took my statement and went away. I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom. I wasn't allowed to sleep in my own bed because they had made me go back to sleep. Well, no, my husband recommended that I go to sleep and get some rest. So I went back to sleep and then he came in and said, no, actually the police have said you can't sleep in the bed. You need to strip the bed. You need to give them the clothes you're wearing. And since then I've never seen that bedding or the clothes since. And another joke I made is that it was the first time I wore those shorts and I really liked them and I'm never going to see them again. I just made jokes because I didn't know what else to do. I just didn't. I had no idea. I wasn't allowed to go to bed, wasn't allowed to go to the toilet, and then the next day I had someone from the assault department pick me up and they took me to a place in Glasgow where I'd be tested for DNA, for anything. And that in itself was very traumatic. I am a very private person in regards to my body. I am very uncomfortable with my body and how I look. So having a stranger have to test, that was a lot for me, and it was that in itself was traumatic. And I really pushed that away because that wasn't a good experience for me. So yeah, I got tested and like I said, he admitted to everything. So that's kind of the event and things like that. He did later on plead guilty, which I didn't think he would do. He obviously had to speak to a lawyer. I don't know all the details about this, that's just what I've been told. So I was surprised that he pled guilty, but I think the evidence was overwhelming because he had he'd taken pictures which were destroyed, thankfully. But they found them on his phone, so he really couldn't deny anything, and he admitted everything, and from what I understand, they did find his DNA. So if he tried to plead guilty, it would have been a worse sentence for him. So, like, if he tried to plead not guilty, it would have been a worse sentence for him. So he pled guilty, which meant it didn't need to go to court, and I was relieved at that. But at the same time, I don't know if I was, like, disappointed, because it meant I wouldn't get to put my feelings across about the whole situation. But yeah, he pled guilty, and I did have the option of writing to the courts, because although it didn't have to go to court, he still had to go to court for sentencing. So I did have the option to write how this has affected me and send that to the judge to influence the sentencing, which I did. So I sent all of that across. So in a way, he heard my feelings because it would have been read out to him in court during his sentencing. He was put in jail for 8 months, I believe. I don't know when he got out, but he was sentenced in December for 8 months, which I personally don't think was enough time. And I also have a protection order against him for 10 years. So I feel safe enough that he's not going to go near me again. And I've also moved house since, so he doesn't know where I live. The support I had after it all happened, although initially it seemed like I had a lot of support from authorities, I didn't really. The interview process with kind of the head of the department for, like, assault, I know it's probably her job, but she made me feel very invalidated with some of the way, like some of the questions she would ask me and the way she would ask me them. She would say, oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I'm assuming she needs to do that for people who aren't being genuine and needs to try and find some sort of lie in there somewhere, but she made me feel like the way that I reacted and the way that I handled it meant that it wasn't, that it didn't happen. And that's what I'm saying before, like I didn't feel like for a long time that I deserved to call it the R word. Because she kind of made me feel like it wasn't, by the way she was asking me things, and I didn't appreciate that, and I feel like ultimately that halted some of my recovery from the event, and I think that might have kind of made how I dealt with it worse, because I felt like even though he'd admitted to it, I felt like she was telling me that I was still lying. And yeah, it was hard. I had the help of Rape Crisis Scotland, and they offered me help, like, and support, and initially I said that I didn't want the help, but I might in the future, and they said that's fine, because I felt okay. I felt like the way I was handling it, I just felt very numb, and I didn't particularly feel any emotion, so I felt like it wasn't going to affect me as much as it did. So I said, no, I don't want any help right now, but if I change my mind, can I contact you? And they said yes. So I was like, fab, thank you. I'd say about a month went by, and that's when I felt like I needed the help. That's when I felt like I wasn't doing so well, and that I wanted to seek out help and support, and I don't know, because I didn't feel like myself. So I called the number that they gave me. No one answered the phone because they were busy, so the voicemail said to leave my name and number. Alright. And someone would get back to me. So I was like, right, okay, I left my name and my number. And I never heard back. Despite leaving my name and my number available for them to contact me if needed, I heard nothing. Which made me feel very alone, and I think that's when I spiralled. I cried every single day. And at this point as well, I won't go into much detail at all, maybe I will in the future, but at this point as well, I was also having a bad time within my job. I was miserable, and I didn't even take any time off work because I felt like I couldn't. I took a day off on a Friday so I could have a long weekend with my family. My mum paid for a plane ticket so I can go visit them and spend some time away, which I appreciated. Other than that, and having a half day at work, or leaving like 2 hours early so I could go to the police station, that was all the time I took off work because I felt like I wasn't able to take any more time off work. I've put on too much eye primer. So yeah, I really didn't have a good time at work anyway. I didn't have time to process what had happened because I was stressed at work and I was stressed at home, and with all of the kind of calls and letters I was getting from courts and things like that. So I felt very alone, and I was having a hard time at work. I'd be the first one in work, and I would use that time alone to just cry. I would collapse against the floor and cry. Against the wall, sit on the floor and cry that way. Which was so bad because when people came in, I then had to hold all of that in, and I had to hide how I was feeling. They knew what had happened. I had to tell them what had happened because obviously I had to go to the police, and they were concerned about why I needed to go to the police. And the people I worked with, I felt like they were my friends. As time went on, I kind of thought that they're not anymore. I didn't really trust them. And for a couple months while I still worked there, I felt very alone. And with the fact that I didn't receive any more contact from Rape Crisis Scotland, I felt even more alone at that. Yeah, I didn't have a very good time, and it was at that point that I considered harming myself again, which was terrifying for me because I didn't want to start. I didn't want to be that person again. And on the 5th of November 2017, and I remember because it was Remembrance Day, that was the first time I harmed myself. in 3 or 4 years because I just couldn't handle it anymore, and harming for me was always a way to cope. That's kind of all that I ever knew from when I was younger, and it worked for me. And if I could choose to have never had that coping mechanism, I would choose it because it sucks. So I had relapsed and I was keeping it a secret. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell my husband. I didn't tell my family. I kept it to myself because I didn't want to admit at that point, after feeling so alone, after not getting any response from the support that I was told would be there for me, I didn't want people to know how much I was struggling, because what's the point? I'd reached out for help and no one had helped. I felt like no one cared, so I kept it to myself, didn't tell anyone, and suffered in silence. It was after New Year that I really slipped again. I made a Instagram account that it's anonymous, no one knows what it is. Like one of my friends knows, but I don't think she knows the name of the account anymore to even find it. But in making that account, I just wanted to rant about how I was feeling, just to try and get something off my chest in an anonymous manner. But by doing that, I surrounded myself in a toxic environment, and that really didn't help me because I was surrounded by people who were also in the same situation, but people that were further along than I was, and people that had already relapsed and weren't trying to recover, weren't trying to get help, or who were getting help but were refusing to kind of accept it. Very toxic environment at that point. And I believe that ultimately resulted in me relapsing again. I've obviously spoken about it on my channel, I don't know how many times, at least once in my fake tan video, that I have got scars on my wrist. And won't come as any surprise right now, but that's how they got there. And obviously I had been self-harming when I was a teenager, or essentially a child, but they were all very superficial. I've got 1 or 2 lasting scars from that. So like they were hardly even a cat scratch. My cat has scratched me worse. But that doesn't mean that what I was going through wasn't valid. I was still hurting myself. I still needed help, and I did get help. But the second time around, after the assault, that's when it really got worse. I won't go too much into detail because at the end of the day, no one wants to hear it. But I just need to talk about it. On one occasion, I did need to go to the doctors to be bandaged up, and that was a couple months in. And as time went on, and the more I suffered in silence, the worse I got, and the worse the harming got. Not long after I started self-harming again, a couple months after, I'd say maybe, eventually I did tell my husband. I couldn't keep it from him any further, mostly because the harm I was inflicting on myself was getting worse, and it was going to be harder to hide. So before he found out himself, I decided to come clean, and he was obviously very upset. Not with me, but just that I hadn't told him how I was feeling, so that he couldn't help me. And at that point he said that he wanted me to go to the doctor, and I said, I'm already thinking about it. I've already had the thought, because at that point I knew I had a problem, and at that point I knew I needed to get something sorted. So I made an appointment with my GP, and I requested the GP that my husband had been seeing for about a few years at that point for his own health condition, because I knew she was a good doctor, and I knew she would listen, and I knew she would take the right steps because she had done with him. I went to her, told her what had happened, and that I'm getting worse with my mental health and with my self-harm, and I'm not coping. And at first I thought I'd be fine, and I wasn't. And just to kind of timestamp this was about a year after it happened. I don't know exact dates or whatever, but about a year after it happened. And she then said to me, right, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to contact Rape Crisis Scotland. And there was another one, but I can't remember who that was. She said, I want you to contact them and I want you to request that they give counselling, say that I have referred you. I will contact them as well and say, expect a phone call from this person, and I have referred her. So she said, I want you to contact them and they will give you counselling. And I said, right, fab, thank you. So I left the GP, and on the way home I phoned the number and they wrote down my details and said that someone would be in contact with me soon. So I said, thank you so much for actually listening and actually accepting my plea. About a week later, someone phones me and told me that they don't offer counselling. They have like a crisis line, but that's about it. So that's all that they could really do for me. And I said, but my GP said that she was going to refer me to kind of your help services, and they said, well, yeah, we can do like a phone call thing if you just want to talk, but we don't do like any formal therapy sessions or anything like that. And I said, right, okay, well, I'm kind of looking at getting some full support therapy. She said, right, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll schedule you an appointment for a phone call chat, and we'll discuss the options there. And I said, right, okay. She said she'd phone me back, and I never heard from them again. So I left that about a month and a half to 2 months, again, spiralled. Finally went back to my GP again and said they've done nothing. They haven't done anything. They told me that they don't offer what I needed and what you said that they would offer, and after the initial call they never got back to me after that, and she felt horrible. She was like, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, I kind of thought that because you hadn't spoken to me that it had all been resolved. And I said, unfortunately not, no. So she then put me on a waiting list for therapy. This was about September. No, this must have been about August time. So she put me on a waiting list for formal therapy through the NHS. She referred me to it, put me on the waiting list. But she did tell me the waiting list would be about 12 weeks, so 3 months. And I said, that's okay. And she said if I needed help beforehand to contact her directly, and she could try and push me up the list, but it's not guaranteed. And I said, right, okay. At this point I'd already felt like I was a burden, because I'd come back to this woman multiple times and I'd contacted this support agency to ask for help, and twice they'd not given me any. So I felt like, again, I was alone, and I felt like a burden. So when I heard nothing about the therapy waiting list, and when I started getting worse again, I didn't say anything. I've always been a very strong-willed person. I don't like asking for help because of the way that I was brought up. I didn't have a great upbringing, and I've always wanted to do things on my own, and I'm still like that, but only now I'm more open about my health. So when I didn't hear anything back, I was just like, well, I'll just deal with it myself then. I'll just do what I need to do. And unfortunately the only thing that I knew how to do was to hurt myself. So that carried on, and eventually on the 10th of October I had my first therapy session, and that couldn't have come at a better time because I'd already hurt myself a fair bit, and it was within those sessions. No, was it before? It might have been before or those sessions, yeah. Before those sessions is when I had to be bandaged up at the doctor's, and they asked if I was getting help, and I said I'm on the waiting list, yet I'm getting there. But not long after I started my therapy, I almost took it too far. I didn't get medical assistance for that. I should have had stitches. I should have definitely gone to seek help, but I didn't. I kept it a secret. My husband knew that I did it, and I just want to add, my husband has been very supportive throughout all of this. He did want me to get help, and he did push me to get help, and without his support I wouldn't be here. So yes, he knew that I had been hurting myself, but he didn't know how much because I was hiding it, and he also didn't know when. I never told him when, so it's not like he could have told me, no, I'm taking you to the hospital or I'm doing whatever. He couldn't have told me that because I didn't tell him whenever I did anything. So do not try and say, well, where was he? What did he do? Because he did a lot. So after that happened, I told my therapist about it. And I told her how scared I was because I didn't even realise what I had done. I had dissociated worse than what I had ever done for other times. I dissociated quite a lot when I was having an episode, so it's quite typical for me, but this time I dissociated more than what I had done before. And that's terrifying when you don't even realise what you're doing. And if I hadn't have snapped out of it, I dread to think. But that happening to me made me realise what I was doing. And that's when I started to become clean. I wanted to stop what I was doing. I wanted to stop hurting myself, and I wanted to stop destroying my body. Because I'm left with these scars for the rest of my life. They'll never go away. I could do laser treatments if I wanted to. I could use bio oil. I could even get a skin graft, which sounds absolutely terrifying, so I'm never going to do that. So there are ways I could get rid of my scars, but they're never truly going to be gone. So I am planning on getting a tattoo done, which I planned on having done the same day this is going up, on the 15th of July. I wanted to change what this day meant to me by having a sign of survival marking it instead of the initial trauma. But obviously with COVID and tattoo shops being closed, I hadn't even been able to put in an appointment. If the places are open again, I want to get it done instead to mark 1 year officially clean of self-harm. But yeah, so what was I even talking about? Yeah, sorry, yeah, I completely forgot what I was talking about. So yeah, I snapped, realised what I was doing, and decided in that moment I wanted to get better. Because if I didn't get better, then I would have died. And it was only after a couple of days and after I spoke to my therapist that I realised what I was doing when I was dissociating was a suicide attempt. I didn't know it in that time because I dissociated myself so much, but looking back it is 100% obvious that that was an attempt. And had I not came back to my senses and realised what I had done, it probably would have been successful. And that's terrifying, because even just the thought of it. So from then on, that was October time as well. I believe the end of October or early November, I decided no, I'm gonna come clean. I don't want to do this anymore. And I was clean for about a month, which was the longest that I had been clean since I started self-harming again. Clean for about a month, and then I had a minor relapse. And it was then that I told my therapist, hey, like, how long have you been doing this? Like, this is all you know. You've never had another coping mechanism, so although it's not good that you've done it, it's okay, because that's how you know how to cope. But at that point, she was telling me other ways to cope if I needed to, other ways to ground myself for when I felt terrible. And that ultimately, her saying that it's not good but it's okay, it's normal, that helped me come to terms with relapsing and really helped me kind of move on. Because she was right, like, it is all I'd known. For people who start off with healthy coping mechanisms, and for people that start off, I don't know, going for a jog, people that have always done that, for them that comes natural to them, and no one tells them that's weird, or that's not right, like, that's not normal. No one would tell them that. But for me, I just did the wrong mechanism when I was younger. So for me, going back to that was normal. And I don't expect everyone to understand, but for people that have been through it, they'll understand. And it's okay to not understand as well. I wish no one understood, because that means that they've been in the same situation. So it's okay if you don't understand. So from then on, I was clean for a while. I think I got to 7 months clean. the anniversary of the assault came around, and unfortunately it was too much and I relapsed. That was last year. And I had 2 minor relapses, and from then on I have been clean. I actually do keep track of it as motivation for me now. So the last time I harmed myself was the 15th of August 2019, and that was 10 months, 23 days ago. So I'm close to a full year clean. So if my tattoo shop that I normally go to is open again by the 15th of August, and if I can get up enough money for the tattoo, I will be getting my scars covered then instead. If I can't get it for then that's fine. Maybe I'll do it for like my anniversary of starting therapy. I don't know. So I continued my therapy, stayed clean, and I was very excited about that because I wanted to make positive steps in my recovery. I wanted to get better, and I really wanted to give it a shot because I was genuinely worried I wasn't even going to make it to my wedding, which was in May of 2019. So I continued with my therapy, and I finally finished that on the 31st of October 2019, so Halloween, to make something positive from my experience. Obviously it's not a positive thing and it never will be, but to give myself closure, I decided to plant a tree, and my idea for that was to bring new life, to make something beautiful happen from such an ugly experience and from such a horrible time in my life. I wanted to make something good symbolise this, and when I told my therapist what I was going to do, she said that was a great idea. And me and my sister from then both went on the bus. We went to a local B&Q and she helped me pick out a tree because I had no idea, and she'd worked in a garden centre for a while, so she had more idea on trees than I did. We took it home. She stayed home. She didn't come out with me after that. Then my husband and I went into a local wooded area not far from our flat. I picked a spot and I buried the tree. The night before I finished my therapy, I also had decided to write all of my feelings down and to write everything down. Everything that happened, my therapy sessions, things I had learned, things like that. And I wrote things down which I have never physically said and I would never be able to physically say, and I'm okay with that. I've written it down. No one's going to see it, but I've written it down. So I wrote that down and I covered that. I put all of that in a Tupperware box, and on the lid of the Tupperware box I wrote, "Here lies my confessions, my struggles, my thoughts. May you create something more beautiful than I could have imagined." And then I put the dates 15/07/2017 and 10/10/2018 and 31/10/2019 because that's the date of the assault and that's the dates that I started and ended my therapy. So I wanted them on there. They're very important dates to me. So, yeah, I buried that next to the tree and no one's ever going to find it unless for some reason that area gets uprooted, but it's on like the top of a kind of really high hill, so I don't think it would ever be uprooted anytime soon, and by then it'll probably be long gone anyway. So I buried my tree, and that for me was weird. I didn't know how I should have felt about it. I didn't know if I should feel relieved or if I should feel sad or how I should feel, and I don't think anyone ever does know how they'll feel, but it was something I kind of just felt okay. And as well as that, again, I said earlier it's going to be a little bit of a jumping around everywhere, but a few weeks before I finished my therapy, I was sat on the bus on the way home looking out the window and I felt myself smile. For the first time in so long, I felt myself smile for no reason. I felt content and I felt happy. And even just knowing that I had fought through therapy, I had fought to survive, and I had made it on the other end, just knowing that, I think for me that was enough to give me closure. And burying the tree and planting the tree and burying my confessions, that was enough for me. It's not going to be enough for everyone. Everyone takes it differently. but I had already found some sort of peace within my own mental state by the time I'd finished therapy. So therapy was very effective for me, and I know it's not effective for everyone, but I do recommend that everyone tries it if they are struggling with anything, because without therapy I can confidently say I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have made it through because I wouldn't have learned about other ways to cope. So yeah, that was the main experience, and for a while I was great. I was fine. I started taking it a bit hard again a little while after, but I think that's kind of standard procedure, things like that happen. And I was doing great actually up until just kind of recently. It's getting that time of year again, and because of the history of me relapsing and things, I always worry that I will do the same thing again, and I don't want to do the same thing again. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I feel like if I talk about it all, I don't even need to speak to someone about it, I just need to speak to myself and talk and just get it off my chest. I felt like that would help me through this difficult time. So far it's kind of works. I mean, I got the idea for like a makeup therapy thing from Nikki Tutorials, because when her little brother died, she did the same thing, and I feel like she's done it a few times beforehand as well, or since, I can't remember. But sometimes sitting down in front of a camera or in front of a mirror, or just sitting down and talking to yourself, which, let's be honest, that's all I'm doing right now, is talking to myself. Like, I'm looking at a camera, doing my makeup, and I'm talking to myself. But sometimes doing that is all you need. Sometimes you don't need to speak to someone and have them speak back to you. You just need to get it off your chest, and that's what I wanted to do by making this video. Like I said at the beginning, I don't even know if it's going to go up, but I will go through the process of editing as another step of the therapy, because by exporting it, that should give me some closure to everything I've said today. It might not, this might not help, but I remember when I said to one of my friends that I wanted to do this sort of video, she said she thinks it will be a great idea, and I was like, thank you, and I'm going to do it no matter what. And so now that I am doing it, I mean, even just the beginning of this video compared to now, I was a mess. I was crying, and that was a bit weird. Like, the main thing I was crying about was because I had acknowledged what had happened to me out loud for the first time, and it's weird how that is hard for me, but talking about everything else is fine. Like, I'm desensitized to the harm that I put on myself, and I'm desensitized to talking about therapy and things like that, but when it comes to actually what happened, even just telling like the brief details of the night that it happened, I was more or less composed. But I think for me, I just needed to get it out there that, yeah, this happened. Yeah, this is the most traumatizing thing I'll probably ever go through in my life. But at the end of the day, I came out on the other side. Unfortunately, not everyone can say that, but I'm 100% grateful that I can say that. But this time of year, things just get a bit real, and things just get a bit crazy and scary, and I just needed to get it off my chest and get it out there. And hopefully, now that I have said it out loud, that I'll be able to continue with my life and continue being open about it, and I don't know, just move on. Like I said, PTSD is, in a sense, terminal. It will always be with me, and I will always have flashbacks of the night that I almost killed myself, and I will always have, I mean, not always, but there will always be a time when I will have another flashback, whether it's the event or things after that. There's always going to be a time where that will pop up again, and this time of year will probably always be hard for me, but I'm so grateful that with the support of my friends and family that know about what happened, and the people that I feel comfortable enough to share the details with and to talk about my feelings with, and the people that I'm lucky enough to have around me that listen and understand and care. I know I can make it through it regardless. I've made it this far. 3 years, like, it's a long time, but in a sense not long enough. And I think sometimes I feel like I shouldn't still feel like this because it's been a while, but the important thing to remember is that there is no time, there's no time scale for recovering, there's no time scale for coming to terms with things. There's no time scale at all for anything. You do it in your own time. Don't care what anyone else says about it, because at the end of the day, if they're berating you for how you're feeling because it's been X amount of time, then they don't know what it's like, and they don't deserve to have you in their life because they're not willing to even care. Chances are what happened to you, they're probably seeing as an inconvenience to their life. And it's like, are you really that self-absorbed that you think that what happened to me, you know, I should get over it because it's affecting your life in some way? Like, no. Get out. Like, leave me alone. So yeah, it's important to know that take your own time with it. And if it's also happened to you and you never spoke about it, that's fine. If it happened to you and you didn't say anything about it until 50 years later, that's fine. People deal with things in their own way, in their own time. And no one should have to come out about it, about their feelings, until they're ready. And forcing people to shut up about it and to come to terms with it and to anything like that is not okay. I just want to put out there as well, I'm not doing this for anyone but me. Again, I just want to say that because some people probably, there's always going to be that one person that thinks I'm just doing it for views, I'm doing it for sympathy, and I don't need that. I don't want that. I don't want sympathy. I don't want anything. All I want is just to get this off of my chest, and the best way that I can think of to do it is just to talk. If I get any negative comments, they will be deleted and you will be removed from my channel if the video goes up, because I'm not tolerating it. I don't care what people have to say. I don't care about their negative comments, because there's always going to be someone victim blaming. There's always going to be someone defending the abuser, despite the fact that he admitted to it himself. There's always going to be someone that defends him, e.g. family, friends, random people that just like to hate victims. Oh, but you were drunk, so maybe you did want it. I was also asleep, so how can I give consent if 1, I'm drunk, and if 2, I'm asleep? So don't be coming in here with that bullshit, because you just don't do that. You just don't act like a piece of shit, because this video is hard enough to make without receiving abuse again. You know, I'd be lying if I said I was fine right now, because I'm not really. I thought I was having an okay day today, but I'm not. The thoughts will still come back, and it is always the time of year that it happens, so the thoughts will crop back every now and then, every year. But the important thing is that the worst of it, I think, is over. And yes, I'll be battling with this the rest of my life. And yes, sometimes it will seem like it's too much, but the important thing is just to carry on, because you never know what's around the corner. If I hadn't have carried on, and if I hadn't have sought help, or sought out help, whatever you say, then I wouldn't have even got married. I wouldn't have even had my wedding, which was one of the best days in my life. I would never have had that, and I would never be able to have kids. I'd never be able to see nieces and nephews that I might have. I'd never be able to see my family. I never would have got my 2 kittens. Like, I never would have got so many things that make me happy if I had given up. And although sometimes it seems like you can't go on any further, take it by the seconds. Don't take it by the day. Some people say take it day by day. Sometimes that's too much. Take it by the seconds. Take it by the minutes. If you thought 10 seconds ago that you can't handle it anymore, well, guess what? You just handled it another 10 seconds. You just made it another 10 seconds, and that seems like nothing, but it is. So many things can happen in 10 seconds. Just sit there to yourself and count in your head 10 seconds, because it sounds like such a tiny amount of time, but when you actually think about it, it is a lot. A lot of things can happen in that time. You could get a text from your sister telling you she's pregnant and you're going to be an aunt or an uncle. You could get the job offer of your dreams. You could get accepted into college. So many things like this could happen. You could even just see a tweet that your favourite TV show has been carried on for another season. Do you want to miss that? Do you really want to miss that? Especially what if it was a final season? Would you want to miss how that ends? I wouldn't. And to be honest, I would have actually missed how Game of Thrones ended, but would that have been a bad thing? Because it didn't end that great. But if I hadn't have carried on, there would have been so many things that I had missed, and so many things I'd never get to experience, and it is worth it. And sometimes you think that it's too hard to carry on going when you feel this way, and me kind of saying that PTSD is terminal, like, that might seem very daunting, but when you think about it, when you get help, like, it gets better. Your flashbacks get few and far between. You're able to deal with them easier. Your panic attacks get less and less. Your anxiety, it doesn't go away, but your anxiety can go to a manageable level. I personally chose not to have antidepressants and anxiety medication, although I have previously been on it, but throughout my therapy I decided not to. I didn't feel like I needed them, but there are medications you can take to help you get through. There's a lot of ways you can get through things, and it may seem daunting, and there will be times where you don't want to go through with it, but you should go through with it, because it will be worth it in the end. I think the biggest message that I want to put across if I do decide to upload this video is to take the help when you're offered it initially. Even if you don't think you'll need it, I would advise just to take it, because the sooner you get that help, generally the better off you will be later on. If I had taken the help earlier, I reckon I might not have relapsed, but then I don't know. You can never be 100% certain what you would have done. But I don't think that I would have had I taken the help sooner. So that's something I definitely recommend, is to take the help when you're offered it, because I wish I did. If you aren't able to take the help when you're offered it, or if you don't, like if it's already happened and you're offered the help and you said no, I'll be fine, and then you later on want it, please speak to someone as soon as possible and keep pushing. If you feel like you're not getting the right response, keep pushing. Because it's not worth it. It's not worth going through so much more just because you didn't originally fight for it. Because I wish I did push sooner. I wish I didn't leave it over a year before I eventually got actual help. Don't suffer in silence. There will always be someone that believes you. There will always be someone that will listen. There will always be someone to support you. Even if you have been made to feel like no one will believe you by a friend or a family member or by the abuser themselves, someone will believe you, and it's worth coming out about it, because no one can help unless they know. No one can make changes unless they know. No one can do anything if you don't tell them. So if you want support from people, you need to tell them. This will be a very long video, and if I do upload this, then I'm sorry. I'm going to try and cut it down as much as possible, because I know it will be long. Just make sure that you're not leaving yourself alone, because the biggest sabotage to your own health is you. Only you can make the changes that are needed to help yourself along. So if you don't ask for help, how can anyone else help you? So I think that's it. But that's my story. It's a long one. It's been a long struggle, but it's mine. If I do upload this, and if you have stayed to the end, thank you so much for listening. I mean, you don't know it, but you have been there for me, because I've sat down and I've spoken to this camera and you've listened. And sometimes that's all you need, is just to know that someone's listened. And just one final time, like, I don't want any negative comments about this. I don't want any, I don't know, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't fucking say it. Just don't. Because at the end of the day, I don't need any more abuse. I don't need any more negative feelings about the situation. I don't need any of that. So if you're gonna come in here and send that, then you're a piece of shit, and you're just gonna get blocked, reported. And yeah, so if you have been here, and if you do understand, thank you. And if you don't understand, that's fine. If you don't understand, maybe educate yourself if you don't understand, if you want to educate yourself. But if you don't understand and you refuse to even try to understand, then I don't want you here, because you're not going to change regardless, and you don't deserve my time. I'm not going to give a comment shout out today. I'm not going to, I don't know, I'm not going to ask you to like, comment, subscribe. I'm not, because it's just, I don't, this isn't a typical video. I might do one of these again in the future, but for now I just needed to talk about this, and I needed to get it off my chest. And with the anniversary being on a day that I would normally upload, I didn't want to pretend that I'm doing okay, and I thought if I have 2 videos already pre-filmed as well as this one, so I feel like filming this one now would mean that I don't have to upload, like I don't have to film for another week, so I'll have at least a little bit of time to get my feelings off my chest, really think about them, edit them and process them, and that way I can have some time to myself as well. I don't want this video to come across as a cry for help, for support or for anything. I am doing okay. I've been through over a year of therapy. I've had a lot of support from friends and from my husband and other family members and things. Like, I've had the help that I need, and I don't feel like I need any more. I am content with the help that I've been given, but sometimes your mental health just decides to be an absolute asshole and jumps up at you, and yeah, it brings you down, and sometimes you do just need to talk about it. And honestly, from when I pressed the record button at the beginning of this video to now, my mind feels clear. I feel better now that I've spoken about it, and compared to the crying mess that I was before, I am obviously not crying right now, and I feel very relieved. It feels like there's been something on my chest that's lifted and allowed me to breathe a little bit easier. Thank you for listening if you did, even if you just listened a little bit. But yeah, I'm gonna go back to a normal upload on Sunday. Like I said, it's already pre-filmed, so it's not like I've just gone from like full on depressed and crying to straight up, oh hi, I'm happy, how are you doing? It's not that. I have already pre-filmed it, so normal upload as of Sunday with my normal intro, outro and all that malarkey. But just for today, I don't want to have anything that's not, I don't know, I mean, everything else is authentic on my channel. I don't hide who I am. This video is going to prove that. But I just don't want to have it like masked with outros, and I don't know, just doesn't feel appropriate to me. Don't really know how to end this video, which is why I'm waffling on a bit, but yeah, I'm just going to end it by saying thanks for supporting me in this if you do. Thank you for listening, and thank you for allowing me to get my feelings out there on this platform, because ultimately that's what I've just done, and if I didn't have this channel, then I wouldn't have that output really, just to speak to someone if I needed to. Again, I'm waffling on again, but thank you anyway for your time. Sorry if this video is an hour long, probably is. I've been filming for 2 hours, thereabouts. But yeah, I'll see you for my normal uploads Sunday.